Hello, Nicole Mashburn again. And so we're going to continue with our tissue lab. So this is part two. So part one covered all your epithelial tissues, and part two will cover your connective tissues, your muscle, and your bone. So the first connective tissue we're going to talk about is adipose. And adipose is simply fat. And so when you talk about adipose tissue, it's made up of cells called adipocytes. I'm going to spell that out for you. Adipocyte. So remember, cyte means cell, so these are the fat cells. And so to me, it looks like bubble wrap. So if you see something on your test, it looks kind of like bubble wrap, but it's going to be the adipose connective tissue. And so when you look at this tissue, what you'll see is it's going to have these big circles. And these are the cells. And so you've got a cell, and it's got a big fat bubble in the middle of it. That's what you're looking at, a big fat-filled vacuole. And as this big vacuole full of fat expands, it gets larger and larger, it fills up the whole cell, it will actually push the nucleus to the side. So what you're seeing, these little dark spots, this is the nucleus that it's kind of pushed out to the very side because it's full of fat. So as tissue gets, as you gain weight, as you add fat, what happens is you just put more and more fat into these vacuoles, and the cells just get bigger and bigger and bigger. So they're just making bigger vacuoles of fat as you gain weight. And so that's what you're looking at with the adipose connective tissue. It looks kind of like bubble wrap. You're going to see these big white areas, these big fat-filled vacuoles with the little nucleus pushed off to the outside. Now the other connective tissue you need to recognize is your dense irregular. There is dense regular, but we're just going to do the dense irregular for your exam. And just notice how irregular the pattern is. So it just kind of looks like it's going in all different directions. So this is something you would find in your skin. So your outer layer of your skin is stratified squamous, but beneath that is some dense irregular connective tissue. So that allows your skin to move in many different directions. Okay, so you smile and frown, that allows that skin to be stretched and go in different directions because of the irregular pattern. Another connective tissue are your cartilages, and there's three types of cartilage. You have hyaline, elastic, and fibro. So we'll do hyaline first, and then I'll show you the other two. So remember, connective tissue is going to have some kind of a living cell and then some kind of a matrix. So like blood, the matrix is plasma, and bone, the matrix is the hard bone. And in cartilage, it's this kind of plasticky looking stuff. It's a glassy matrix. If you've ever eaten a chicken bone, or eaten a drumstick, on the end of the bone you've got that piece of plastic. That's the hyaline cartilage, and it's a type of connective tissue. Again, it's going to be on the end of the bones. It acts as an articular surface so that the bones don't crunch together. It makes it smooth. So it looks kind of like a smooth, glassy, has a smooth, glassy appearance. And so the cells that make the cartilage are called chondrocytes. And so this little dark, this is the nucleus of the chondrocyte. And so this cell lives in a little house called a lacuna. And so the little white bubble, that's the lacuna, the cell house, and then the cell is actually inside of it. Okay? So the test question will say, name the space, then I'm asking you to tell me the little cell house, the lacuna. Name the cell, I'm asking you to tell me the chondrocyte. Okay? And then if I say, what's this glassy looking stuff, that's the matrix. And this type of tissue is hyaline connective tissue, or hyaline cartilage, which is a type of connective tissue. Now, other examples will be elastic and fibro. So with elastic cartilage, you're going to see a lot of elastic fibers. So you still have the lacuna, you still have the chondrocytes, you still have the matrix, but within that matrix you have fibers that are elastic fibers. And you see this kind of cartilage in your ear. So if you bend your ear, it springs back. It's elastic, and so it's going to have, again, these elastic fibers in it. In fibrocartilage, it's usually going to be a little more regular pattern. You're going to have fibers. There's these fibrous fibers inside the glassy matrix, and these give it strength. So you're going to see a lot of fibers. They're going to line up linear. You're still going to see the chondrocytes and the lacuna. And this is where you're going to find this where you think about shock absorber. So at the knee between your big bone of your upper leg and the bone of your lower leg in your knee, the meniscus. That's like a knee pad that connects, that allows you to not crunch your two bones together. Between your backbone, between the vertebra, you'll find it there, and then holding your two pubic bones together. So this is a real strong cartilage, but it's also very good at shock absorption. So again, look for that regular pattern of fibers inside the Glassie matrix, whereas the elastic is a little more irregular. Again, another connective tissue is blood. And so when you look at blood, the matrix is the plasma, which in this slide would just be all the space would be where the plasma is. And then you have cells floating in that plasma. And blood has two types of cells. We have red blood cells called erythrocytes and white blood cells called leukocytes. So the pink things are the red blood cells, and then the big purple things are the white blood cells. And you'll do more detail about that in your later anatomy class. Again, another connective tissue is your bone, also known as osseous tissue. And again, you've got these little lacuna, these little spaces that have the osteocytes and osteoblasts and osteocytes are going to be found inside these little cell houses. And if you look at bone, one big, it's like a set of tree rings, is called an osteon. That's kind of the structural unit of the bone. Again, we'll do more about this later, but right now just be able to recognize if you see a slide that looks like this, it's bone. And then we have muscle tissue, and again, muscle tissue comes in three varieties: skeletal, which moves the bone; smooth, which you find in tubes like blood vessels in the digestive system; and then cardiac, which makes up the heart. Again, you just need to be able to recognize what a muscle tissue is. If you're seeing something that has long linear cells, that's going to be skeletal. If it looks kind of diffuse and you can't make out individual cells, that's going to be smooth. And if it looks kind of branched, that's going to be cardiac. But again, for this test, just be able to recognize, again, this is muscle tissue versus connective tissue or any kind of epithelial tissue. And then last but not least, nervous tissue. Again, we'll do this again when we get to that unit later on, but just want you to be able to, if you see a slide, know where it comes from. Neurons are going to be long, spiky looking cells. So if you see a cell that looks really spiky, that's going to be a neuron. That should be your first clue that you're in nervous tissue. Again, we'll do more detail later. Just recognize if you see a slide that looks like this, just put nervous tissue down. All right, and then just one more reminder. As we're looking at these tissues, don't think of them as individual tissues. Also think about what they do as they work together with other tissues. As we move through skin, as we start talking about bone and muscle and the nervous system, we're going to start putting all these tissues together to form organs. This is the skin, and so if you look at skin, it's made up of a layer of stratified squamous and a layer of dense irregular connective tissue. So you have epithelial tissue and you have connective tissue that's making up the skin. Deep to that, you've got a bunch of adipose tissue, also connective tissue. So just remember, as we think of these organs, don't think of organs as one type of tissue. They're going to be made up of multiple types of tissues. And so we just want to be able to recognize that and think about, why would an organ be made up of multiple tissues? What is each tissue doing for that organ? What's its function? So if this was the skin, the epithelial tissue is going to be protection. You have many layers of stratified squamous, protects you against abrasion. Your dermis is connecting the epidermis to the underlying tissue, and because it's irregular, it's real stretchy and can move in many different ways. So again, just start thinking about these things not as individual tissues. You need to do that, but also think of it collectively when we put these tissues together, how they work to make the organ function like it should. And we'll do this as we move through bone and muscle and nervous system as well. All right, that's all I have, and I'll talk to you in the next video.